On June 23, 2024, a process server handed me legal papers accusing me of stalking my ex-husband across 3 cities while I was physically unable to walk. I'm Brenda Morris, 58 years old. I laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because I'd just spent 116 days in a hospital bed recovering from bilateral hip replacement surgery. Then I decided to do something about it. My hands trembled as I read the first page. Notice of legal action harassment and stalking. Marcus Hayes, my ex-husband of 3 years, was suing me for $250,000. The allegations were precise and damning, following him to his workplace in Ottawa on March 15th, appearing outside his girlfriend's apartment on April 8th, showing up at his gym in Kingston on May 22nd, and being photographed near his family cottage in Muskoka on June 3rd. Every single date listed fell within the 4 months I'd been hospitalized at Toronto Western Hospital, recovering from surgery that had left me unable to stand without assistance for 6 weeks. I sat in my small apartment in Toronto's East End, the June afternoon sun streaming through windows. I could finally open myself after months of depending on others for everything. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 years ago, I'd owned a construction company worth $2.4 million. I'd employed 43 people and had built my business from nothing over 28 years as one of the few Black women in Ontario's construction industry. Then my largest client, Riverside Development Corporation, filed for bankruptcy, owing me $847,000. The domino effect destroyed everything I'd built. The business collapsed within 60 days. The house in Oakville went into foreclosure. Marcus filed for divorce 3 months later, citing financial stress and irreconcilable differences. My health deteriorated under the pressure, and by February 2024, both my hip joints had degraded so badly that Dr. Patricia Gomez at Toronto Western told me I needed immediate surgery or I'd be in a wheelchair permanently within 6 months. Now sitting in my modest 1-bedroom apartment that cost $1,800 a month, a far cry from the 4-bedroom house with the mortgage payment of $4,200, I held papers claiming I'd been stalking the man who'd abandoned me at my lowest point. I flipped through the attached documentation. 15 color photographs, each one showing a Black woman in the background. Same height as me, 5'7". Similar build, though I'd lost 32 pounds during my hospital stay. Same box-braided hairstyle I'd worn for 15 years. Same gold-rimmed glasses I'd bought from LensCrafters in 2019. In one photo taken outside a Starbucks on Rideau Street in Ottawa, the woman even wore a denim jacket identical to one hanging in my closet. But something was wrong with these photos. I stood up slowly, still careful with my new hip joints, and walked to my bedroom closet. My physical therapist, Jennifer Park, had been adamant about my limitations. For the first 6 weeks post-surgery, I couldn't bear weight on my legs. For weeks 7 through 12, I could walk short distances with a walker. For weeks 13 through 16, I graduated to a cane. The woman in these photographs walked normally fluidly with no visible mobility aids. I pulled out my hospital discharge papers dated June 8, 2024. The physiotherapy notes were detailed. Patient demonstrates significant improvement but continues to require single-point cane for ambulation. Recommended restrictions: no driving until week 18, no stairs without assistance, maximum walking distance, 500 feet with rest breaks. The lawsuit had been filed on June 20th. I'd been home for 12 days. I called the only lawyer I could afford, Rebecca Thornton, who'd handled my bankruptcy proceedings 3 years ago. Rebecca had reduced her fees by 40% because, as she'd said at the time, "What happened to you wasn't fair, Brenda. Riverside knew they were going under and kept accepting your work anyway." Rebecca Thornton Law Office. Her voice was crisp professional. "Rebecca, it's Brenda Morris. I need help." "Brenda, how are the new hips treating you? I heard you had surgery." "They're fine, but I have a problem. Marcus is suing me." There was a pause. "For what? Stalking? He claims I followed him around Ontario for 4 months, March through June." "But you were in the hospital." "Exactly. But he has photographs, Rebecca. 15 of them. And they show someone who looks exactly like me." Another pause, longer this time. "Email me everything. I'm clearing my schedule." I spent the next hour scanning every page and sending them to Rebecca. Then I pulled out my phone and started documenting everything I had that proved my whereabouts during those 4 months. My phone records showed my location history enabled since 2019, when my insurance company offered a discount for tracking my daily steps. Every single day from February 12th through June 8th, my phone had remained within a 3-block radius of Toronto Western Hospital at 399 Bathurst Street. My bank statements showed purchases $847.36 at the hospital cafeteria over 4 months, $234 at the hospital pharmacy. Absolutely nothing charged in Ottawa, Kingston, or Muskoka. But then I found something that made my stomach drop. My credit card statement for April showed a charge I didn't recognize, $487 at a Best Buy in Ottawa on April 15th. I'd been in the hospital that day. I'd been in the hospital every day in April. I pulled up my online banking and clicked through to the detailed transaction. The charge was for electronics, specifically a laptop and a phone case. I checked May. Another charge, $156 at a Tim Hortons in Kingston on May 20th. The transaction notes indicated it was payment for catering services. June, $623 at an Airbnb in Muskoka dated June 1st through June 4th. Someone had cloned my credit card, or had access to my card information. The charges totaled $1.266, small enough that I might not have noticed during my recovery when my daughter Jasmine had been handling my bills. I called my bank immediately. The fraud department put me on hold for 18 minutes before a representative named David Johnson confirmed that yes, these charges appeared suspicious, and yes, they'd initiate an investigation, but it could take 60 to 90 days. Ma'am, do you still have physical possession of your card? I checked my wallet. My MasterCard was there exactly where it should be. Yes. Then someone likely skimmed your card information or accessed your account digitally. Have you used any public Wi-Fi networks recently? I almost laughed. I've been in a hospital for 4 months. I used their patient Wi-Fi every day. That could be it. Hospital networks aren't always secure. After I hung up, I sat staring at my phone. The credit card fraud was troubling, but it was also proof. Proof that someone had been systematically setting me up using my financial information to create a trail leading to the exact cities and dates Marcus claimed I'd been stalking him. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was planned. My phone buzzed. A text from Jasmine. Mom, can I come over? We need to talk. Jasmine arrived 40 minutes later, still in her scrubs from her shift at Mount Sinai Hospital, where she worked as a registered nurse. At 28, she'd inherited my determined jaw, and her father's height. She stood 5'9" to my 5'7". She hugged me carefully, mindful of my hips. I heard about the lawsuit, she said, settling onto my couch. Dad's girlfriend called me. I felt my shoulders tense. Vanessa called you? She wanted to know if I'd testify, said you'd been harassing Dad and she was worried for his safety. Jasmine's voice dripped with sarcasm. I told her exactly where you'd been for the past 4 months, and that she could take her lawsuit. And well, I was very clear. Tell me about Vanessa. Jasmine pulled out her phone and showed me Vanessa's Instagram profile. The woman in the photos was striking Asian features, late 30s, impeccably dressed. In one photo, she stood next to Marcus at what appeared to be a charity gala. Marcus wore a tuxedo and smiled more broadly than I'd seen him smile in years. They met in January, Jasmine said. Dad told me it was at some networking event for entrepreneurs. She runs a marketing consulting firm, apparently, or that's what she claims. Claims I looked her up, Mom. Her LinkedIn says she's a marketing director at Gomez & Associates Marketing Solutions. I called the number listed on their website. It's disconnected. Her business address is a UPS store mailbox. Jasmine scrolled through more photos. And look at this. This photo is supposedly from when she was in Toronto in January. But look at the background, that's the Vancouver Convention Center. I recognize it from when I did that nursing conference there. I leaned closer. Jasmine was right. The distinctive white sails of the convention center were clearly visible. She's lying about basic things, Jasmine continued. So I dug deeper, found a civil case in British Columbia from 2022. A man named David Park sued someone named Vanessa Gomez for harassment and identity fraud. The case was settled out of court records, sealed. My heart rate accelerated. Can you find David Park? Already did. Jasmine showed me a LinkedIn profile. He's a software developer in Vancouver. I sent him a message explaining the situation. He responded within an hour. She pulled up the message thread. He said, and I quote, "If Vanessa Gomez is involved, your mother needs to be very careful. That woman is dangerous." I read the message twice. David had included his phone number and a note. Call me. We should talk. Rebecca called me back at 8:47 p.m. Brenda, I've reviewed everything. This case is bizarre. On the surface, you have ironclad proof you weren't in those locations. Hospital records, phone location, data, bank statements. Everything puts you in Toronto. But these photographs are troubling. Professional quality, good angles, clear images. Whoever took these knew what they were doing. What about the credit card fraud? That helps us, actually. It establishes a pattern of someone using your identity to create false evidence. I'm filing a motion tomorrow, requesting forensic examination of all digital evidence, including cell tower data for any phone calls Marcus claims came from you. He has phone records. This was news to me. According to his filing, you called him 23 times between March and June. He has call logs showing your number. I pulled up my Rogers phone bill on my laptop while still on the phone with Rebecca. I called him 3 times. March 3rd at 2:47 p.m. for 1 minute and 43 seconds I called to tell him about the surgery. March 4th at 9:12 a.m. for 2 minutes and 6 seconds I called to tell him I survived. And June 10th at 3:15 p.m. for 58 seconds I called about signing the final divorce papers. That's it. 3 calls, not 23. Forward me those records immediately. Someone spoofed your phone number. That's a federal crime. After I sent the records, Rebecca said, there's something else. I looked up Marcus's new address. He's living in a condo in Ottawa's Byward Market. Monthly rent $3,800. That's interesting because according to his financial disclosure from your divorce proceedings, his annual income as a senior accountant was $87,000. Even with promotions, he shouldn't be able to afford that. Maybe Vanessa pays half. Maybe. Or maybe there's money coming from somewhere else. Rebecca paused. Brenda, I think we need to shift our strategy. We're not just defending against a lawsuit. We're investigating a crime. Someone went to considerable effort to frame you. We need to find out who and why. After we hung up, I sat in the dark of my apartment, my new hip joints aching dully. Tomorrow I would start physical therapy again. Tomorrow I would keep rebuilding my strength. Tomorrow I would begin figuring out who was trying to destroy what little I had left. But tonight I let myself remember something my grandmother had told me when I was 16 years old, and some boys at school had vandalized my locker because I'd beaten them in a math competition. Baby, she'd said, her voice steady and sure. People who try to tear you down do it because they see something in you they wish they had. Don't give them the satisfaction of breaking. Stand tall, document everything, and let the truth do the heavy lifting. I'd built a construction company as a black woman in a field that didn't want me. I'd survived bankruptcy. I'd survived divorce. I'd survived surgery that left me unable to walk for weeks. I would survive this too, and whoever was behind it would learn that Brenda Morris might bend under pressure, but she didn't break. Not ever. I woke up at 5:47 a.m. on June 25th with a plan that my physical therapist would have hated. I was going to drive to Ottawa. 3 hours each way. 6 hours total in a car sitting in a position that Dr. Gomez had specifically warned against for more than 90 minutes at a time. But I'd spent 4 months being helpless, being vulnerable, being acted upon rather than acting. That was over. I packed a bag with my pain medication, 2 ice packs, a heating pad, and the folder containing every piece of evidence I'd gathered. I left a note for Jasmine. She had a key and often stopped by to check on me, telling her where I'd gone and promising to stop every hour. The drive was exactly as painful as I'd anticipated. By the time I reached the outskirts of Ottawa at 9:15 a.m., my right hip was screaming and my left wasn't far behind. I pulled into a Tim Hortons parking lot, took my medication, and pressed an ice pack against my hip for 20 minutes while I studied the address I'd found. The cyber cafe was called Digital Hub, located at 847 Somerset Street West in Ottawa's Chinatown. According to my credit card records, someone had used my card information there on April 15th, the same day as the suspicious Best Buy charge. I arrived at 10:03 a.m. The cafe was small, tucked between a Vietnamese restaurant and a convenience store. Inside, 12 computer stations lined the walls, half of them occupied by students, and what appeared to be recent immigrants using video calling apps. The air smelled like instant coffee and electronics. A young man behind the counter looked up as I entered my cane clicking against the linoleum floor. He was maybe 30, with dark hair and kind eyes. His name tag read Jimmy. "Can I help you?" he asked, his accent suggesting Spanish as his first language. I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo of my credit card statement. "My name is Brenda Morris. Someone used my credit card here on April 15th. I'm trying to figure out who." Jimmy's expression shifted to concern. Oh man, that's not good. We don't keep credit card info though. People pay at the desk, I process it, that's it. I know it's not your fault, but I need to know who was here that day. Do you keep security footage? He hesitated. Yeah, but I don't know if I can just show you. Privacy laws and stuff. I leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. Let me tell you what happened. 4 months ago, I had surgery. Both my hips replaced. I was in a hospital bed in Toronto for 116 days. During that time, someone stole my identity and used it to frame me for stalking my ex-husband. That person came here, used my credit card, and now I'm being sued for $250,000 for things I physically couldn't have done. My voice cracked slightly. I'm 58 years old. I lost my business 3 years ago. I lost my marriage. I almost lost the ability to walk. I don't have much left to lose, but I'm not letting someone take my name, too. Jimmy was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, My mom went through something similar. Someone stole her identity, maxed out credit cards. Took us 2 years to fix it. He glanced around the empty cafe. Come on, let me see what I can find. He led me to a small back office cluttered with computer equipment and energy drink cans. He pulled up a chair for me. I accepted it gratefully and began typing on a desktop computer. April 15th, you said? Yes. Probably late morning or early afternoon based on when the charge processed. He scrolled through files, clicking through folders labeled by date. Here, April 15th, 11:23 a.m. to 12:47 p.m., Station 7. He opened the video file. The footage was grainy but clear enough. At 11:23 a.m., a woman entered the cafe. She wore a surgical mask, oversized sunglasses, a black hoodie, and a baseball cap. All I could determine was that she appeared to be Asian medium build, approximately 5'4" or 5'5". That's her, Jimmy said. I remember because she came in like 4 or 5 times over a few months. Always dressed like that. Always paid cash for computer time but used different credit cards for purchases. I thought it was weird, but we get all kinds here. On screen, the woman sat at Station 7 and began using the computer. At 11:54 a.m., she approached Jimmy at the counter. He processed a payment, presumably my credit card. She returned to the computer for another 40 minutes, then left at 12:47 p.m. Can you email me this footage? I shouldn't, but he grabbed a USB drive from a drawer. How about I just have a corrupted file that accidentally copied itself onto this drive that I accidentally leave on the counter when I go to the bathroom for 5 minutes? I smiled for the first time in days. You're a good man, Jimmy Ortega. Just helping somebody's mom, like I wish someone had helped mine earlier. While Jimmy was in the bathroom, I copied the footage onto the USB drive. When he returned, I left $100 in cash on the counter, more than I could afford, but worth it. He tried to refuse, but I insisted. For your mom, tell her I hope things worked out. They did, eventually. He walked me to the door. Hey, be careful, okay? That lady came in here 5 times. March 18th, April 15th, May 7th, May 20th, and June 1st. Each time different credit cards, same setup. Whoever she is, she knows what she's doing. Those dates aligned perfectly with the charges on my statement, and the dates Marcus claimed I'd been stalking him. I drove to a coffee shop 3 blocks away and spent the next 2 hours on my laptop, the USB drive plugged in, reviewing every second of footage Jimmy had given me. 5 visits total. 5 times this mysterious woman had come to this cafe specifically to use someone else's credit cards, including mine, while maintaining complete anonymity. But she'd made one mistake. On the May 20th footage at 2:37 p.m., she reached up to adjust her mask. For exactly 3 seconds, her face was partially visible. I took a screenshot, zoomed in, enhanced it as much as my basic photo editing software allowed. Asian woman, late 30s, distinctive mole near her right ear. The resolution wasn't good enough for a definitive identification, but it was something. I pulled up Vanessa Gomez's Instagram again and scrolled through her photos. There, in a photo from 2023, a close-up selfie. The same mole in the same location. The woman using my credit card at a cyber cafe in Ottawa was Marcus's girlfriend. I sat back in my chair, my hip throbbing, my mind racing. Why would Vanessa Gomez frame me for stalking Marcus? They were dating. If anything, she'd want me out of the picture, but I already was. We'd been divorced for 3 years. I had no interest in Marcus, hadn't contacted him except for essential administrative matters. Unless the stalking accusation wasn't really about Marcus at all. I opened my laptop and began a deep dive into Vanessa Gomez's digital footprint. Her Facebook profile showed 487 friends. I started clicking through them systematically. Most appeared to be casual acquaintances, professional connections, people she'd tagged in photos at various events. Then I found something odd. In 2022, Vanessa had posted several photos with a man tagged as Richard Gomez. The caption read, "Miss you every day, Dad. 1 year without you." The post had 17 likes and 8 comments offering condolences. I clicked on Richard Gomez's profile. It had been memorialized Facebook's term for accounts of deceased users. According to his About section, Richard Gomez had died on March 8, 2022, at age 63. He'd lived in Ottawa. His occupation was listed as Owner Gomez and Associates Construction Supplies. My blood went cold. Gomez and Associates Construction Supplies. I knew that company. 3 years ago, when my business collapsed, they'd been one of my largest creditors. When Riverside Development went bankrupt and stopped paying me, I couldn't pay my suppliers. Gomez and Associates had been owed $340,000 for materials I'd ordered for projects I'd never been paid for. I pulled up my bankruptcy files from 2021, hands shaking. There it was, line item 47 on my creditor list. Gomez and Associates Construction Supplies, Ottawa, Ontario. Amount owed $340,000. Status discharged in bankruptcy proceedings. Richard Gomez had lost $340,000 when my company went under. And according to the obituary I found in the Ottawa Citizen, he'd died of a heart attack in March 2022, just 6 months after my bankruptcy was finalized. The obituary mentioned that he was survived by 2 daughters, Vanessa Gomez and Monica Gomez. I immediately searched for Monica Gomez on Facebook. Her profile was private, but her profile picture showed a black woman in her mid-50s with a warm smile. My stomach dropped. Same height as me based on proportions in the photo. Same general build. Similar features. I clicked through to her public photos. There were only 4. One from 2023 showed her wearing box braids identical to my hairstyle. Another showed her wearing gold-rimmed glasses similar to mine. My phone rang. Jasmine. "Mom, where are you? Your note said Ottawa, but you didn't say where specifically." "I'm okay. At a coffee shop. I found something, Jasmine. Something big." "Did you call David Park yet? He's been emailing me. Says it's urgent." I checked my email. 3 messages from David Park, each marked high priority. The most recent one, sent 47 minutes ago, read, "Mrs. Morris, please call me immediately. I have information about Vanessa Gomez that you need to know. She's done this before. You're not her first victim." I called the number he'd provided. He answered on the first ring. "Mrs. Morris." "Yes, this is Brenda Morris." "Thank God. I've been trying to reach you. How much do you know about Vanessa Gomez?" "I know she's dating my ex-husband. I know her father lost $340,000 when my business went bankrupt. I know she's been using my credit card at a cyber cafe in Ottawa, and I just found out she has a sister named Monica who looks remarkably like me." David was quiet for a moment. "She's systematic, Mrs. Morris, methodical. Let me tell you what she did to me, and you'll understand what you're up against." For the next 23 minutes, David Park told me his story. 2 years ago, he'd divorced his wife after 15 years of marriage. 3 months later, he'd met Vanessa on a dating app called Match.com. She'd seemed perfect, beautiful, intelligent, successful. They'd dated for 2 months. Everything was wonderful. Then his ex-wife started receiving threatening emails from David's email address. Photographs appeared showing David following her to work to the grocery store to her sister's house. His ex-wife filed a restraining order. David's employer, a tech company in Vancouver, suspended him pending investigation. "The photographs weren't me," David said. "They were someone who looked like me. Asian male, similar build, similar haircut, similar glasses. But it wasn't me. I was at work during every time those photos were taken. I had badge swipe records, security footage, dozens of witnesses. What happened? I hired a private investigator. Cost me $18,000 but worth every penny. The PI traced everything back to Vanessa. She'd orchestrated the whole thing. Hired an actor who looked like me, cost her $12,000 according to emails the PI eventually uncovered. Spoofed my email address. Created a whole false narrative that I was obsessed with my ex-wife and couldn't let her go. Why? That's what I couldn't figure out at first. Then the PI dug deeper. Vanessa had a pattern. She'd done similar things to 3 other men in Vancouver and Seattle before me. Each time she'd target recently divorced men, date them, then create situations where their ex-wives would fear them. The pattern was always the same: make the ex-wife scared, make the new girlfriend appear to be the safe choice, isolate the man from his past entirely. But why would she do that? Control. She wanted complete control. No lingering connections to exes, no shared custody complications, no divided loyalties. In my case, my ex-wife and I shared custody of our daughter. Vanessa wanted that eliminated. If my ex was afraid of me, custody arrangements would change. I'd have limited supervised visitation at most. My daughter would be effectively removed from my life. That's insane. That's Vanessa. When I confronted her with evidence, she disappeared. Literally. Moved out of her apartment in Vancouver overnight. Changed her phone number. Deleted all her social media. I filed a civil suit, but her lawyer negotiated a settlement $45,000, which barely covered my legal fees and PI costs. Part of the settlement was that all records would be sealed. I'm technically violating that agreement by talking to you, but I don't care. You need to know what you're dealing with. There's more, I said slowly. Her father was Richard Gomez. He owned Gomez & Associates Construction Supplies. My company owed him $340,000 when I went bankrupt. David was quiet. That's new. The money angle. In my case and the others, it was pure pathology. She just wanted control. But if you cost her family money, if her father died after your bankruptcy, Mrs. Morris, this isn't just about control anymore. This is revenge. After we hung up, I sat in my car in the coffee shop parking lot for a long time, my mind working through the pieces. Vanessa Gomez had targeted me specifically, not randomly. She'd waited 3 years, waited until I was at my most vulnerable, recovering from surgery alone, financially devastated, and then she'd struck. She'd orchestrated everything using my credit card to create a financial trail, hiring someone who looked like me to appear in photographs, spoofing my phone number to make threatening calls. And she'd recruited her sister Monica to help. But there was still something missing. The woman in the photographs. The black woman who looked so much like me. Where did she fit in? Monica Gomez was black, but would she really agree to pose as me, to help her sister frame me? My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Where are you? We need to talk. Found something in the court filings. I called her immediately. Brenda Marcus amended his lawsuit. He's added new allegations. He claims you broke into his condo in Ottawa on June 15th and stole documents from his home office. He has security camera footage. I was at physical therapy on June 15th. I have appointments documented. I know, but the footage apparently shows a black woman matching your description entering his building. Rebecca Vanessa has a sister, Monica Gomez. She's black, she looks like me, and I think she's the one in all these photographs. Can you prove that? I looked at the USB drive in my hand, the screenshots on my laptop, the bankruptcy files spread across my passenger seat. I'm about to. The 3 weeks between that phone call and July 18th passed in a blur of preparation. Rebecca filed motions. Detective Sarah McKenzie, assigned to the case after my bank's fraud report, triggered a cybercrimes investigation, obtained warrants for cell tower records. I gave depositions, signed affidavits, and gathered every piece of evidence we'd need. And now, standing before the Ottawa courthouse at 161 Elgin Street, I felt ready. The building was imposing, all limestone and glass. The Ottawa courthouse at 161 Elgin Street was imposing, all limestone and glass, the kind of building designed to remind you that justice was serious business. On July 18, 2024, exactly 25 days after receiving Marcus's lawsuit, I walked through its doors with Rebecca Thornton beside me and Detective Sarah McKenzie from Ottawa Police Cybercrimes Unit 3 steps behind. My cane clicked against the marble floor. My new hip joints ached from the 3-hour drive, but I'd refused painkillers that morning. I wanted my mind completely clear for what was about to happen. Pre-trial hearings weren't supposed to be dramatic. They were administrative procedural lawyers arguing motions, judges making preliminary rulings. But Rebecca had filed an emergency motion requesting forensic examination of all digital evidence and immediate depositions from Marcus Hayes and Vanessa Gomez. Marcus's lawyer, Timothy Walsh, had objected strenuously, which told me everything I needed to know. We were shown to conference room 3B on the 4th floor. Marcus was already there, sitting beside Timothy Walsh, a man in his 50s with silver hair and an expensive suit. And next to Marcus sat Vanessa Gomez. It was the first time I'd seen her in person. She was smaller than I'd imagined, maybe 5'4", but she carried herself with the confidence of someone much larger. Her black suit was tailored perfectly. Her makeup was flawless. When she looked at me, her expression was polite, concerned, sympathetic even. The perfect performance of a woman worried about her boyfriend's safety. I sat down across from them, Rebecca on my right, Detective Mackenzie on my left. The Honorable Justice Patricia Morrison entered at 10:02 a.m. She was a black woman in her 60s, her natural hair pulled back in an elegant twist, her eyes sharp behind reading glasses. "Let's begin," she said, settling into her chair. "Mr. Walsh, you're objecting to Mrs. Thornton's motion for forensic examination." Timothy Walsh stood. "Yes, Your Honor. The motion is overly broad and invasive. My client has already provided substantial evidence of Mrs. Morris's harassment. 15 photographs, call logs showing 23 harassing phone calls, witness statements from 6 individuals who saw Mrs. Morris at various locations." "Your Honor," Rebecca interrupted smoothly, "if I may, those 23 phone calls don't exist. We have complete phone records from Rogers Communications showing Mrs. Morris called Mr. Hayes exactly 3 times in the relevant period. 3 calls, not 23. Someone spoofed Mrs. Morris's phone number to make those calls." Timothy's expression flickered. "That's speculation. It's verifiable fact." Rebecca placed a thick folder on the table. "These are cell tower records obtained through Detective Mackenzie's investigation. Every call Mr. Hayes claims came from Mrs. Th. Morris's phone number originated from cell towers in Ottawa. Mrs. Morris's phone, meanwhile, never left Toronto. We can prove this definitively." She opened the folder and began laying out documents. March 15th, 11:47 a.m. Mr. Hayes claims Mrs. Morris called him. Cell tower records show the call originated from a tower at the corner of Rideau Street and Sussex Drive in Ottawa. Mrs. Morris's phone at that exact time pinged off a tower at Bathurst Street and Dundas Street in Toronto, specifically the tower serving Toronto Western Hospital. Rebecca placed another document down. March 22nd, 15 p.m. Another alleged call. Origin Ottawa Byward Market area. Mrs. Morris's phone, Toronto Western Hospital. Document after document. 16 pages of cell tower records, each one showing the same pattern. The harassing calls had come from Ottawa. My phone had been in Toronto. Every single time. Timothy Walsh's face had gone pale. Marcus looked confused. Vanessa's expression remained perfectly neutral, but I saw her right hand clench briefly into a fist beneath the table. Justice Morrison studied the documents. "This is concerning. Continue, Mrs. Thornton. Now the photographs." Rebecca pulled out a laptop and opened it, turning the screen so everyone could see. "These 15 photographs purport to show Mrs. Morris stalking Mr. Hayes across Ontario. But Mrs. Morris was recovering from bilateral hip replacement surgery during this entire period. She was hospitalized from February 12th through June 8th, 117 days. She clicked to display my hospital records. "These are certified medical records from Toronto Western Hospital. Admission date, surgery date, daily nursing logs, physiotherapy notes. Mrs. Morris couldn't walk unassisted until week 7. She couldn't walk more than 500 feet until week 14. The woman in these photographs walks normally with no mobility aids, no hesitation, no visible signs of recent major surgery." Timothy tried to object. "The photographs clearly show—" "They show someone who looks like Mrs. Morris," Rebecca cut in. "But we've identified who that person actually is." This was the moment we'd planned. Rebecca placed a photograph on the table, a still frame from Jimmy's security footage enhanced by the police forensics team. The woman from the cybercafe mask lowered for those crucial 3 seconds. This woman was captured on security footage at Digital Hub, a cybercafe on Somerset Street West in Ottawa, using Mrs. Morris's credit card information on 5 separate occasions. March 18th, April 15th, May 7th, May 20th, and June 1st. Rebecca placed receipts next to the photo. On each of those dates, fraudulent charges appeared on Mrs. Morris's credit card. Charges in Ottawa, Kingston, and Muskoka, the exact cities Mr. Hayes claims Mrs. Morris was stalking him. She looked directly at Vanessa. Forensic analysis of this image shows a distinctive mole near the right ear. "Miss Gomez, would you mind showing us your right ear?" The room went silent. Vanessa's composure cracked for just a second, a flash of something dark crossing her face. Then she recovered. I don't know what you're implying, but this is absurd. I've never been to that cafe. We have footage from 5 separate dates. Detective Mackenzie spoke for the first time, her voice calm and professional. We also have your fingerprints from the keyboard at Station 7. You left them on March 18th before you learned to be more careful. That wasn't entirely true. We didn't have fingerprints, but Detective Mackenzie said it with such confidence that Vanessa's eyes widened slightly. Rebecca continued, relentless now. We also know about your father, Richard Gomez, owner of Gomez & Associates Construction Supplies. He died on March 8, 2022, 6 months after Mrs. Morris's bankruptcy proceedings concluded. Mrs. Morris's company owed your father $340,000. Marcus turned to stare at Vanessa. What is she talking about? Your girlfriend? I said, speaking directly to Marcus for the first time, has been planning this for 3 years. Her father lost $340,000 when my business collapsed. She blames me for his death. So she waited until I was at my weakest, recovering from surgery alone, barely able to walk, and then she struck. That's insane, Vanessa said, but her voice had lost its smoothness. I met Marcus at a networking event. I didn't even know who Brenda Morris was. You knew exactly who I was. I pulled out my own phone and opened Facebook. You started researching me in November 2023, 4 months before my surgery. You sent a friend request to my daughter Jasmine on November 17th. She declined it, but not before you'd seen her posts about my upcoming surgery scheduled for February. Rebecca placed another document down. This is a receipt from Vancouver Actors Guild for $15,000 paid by Vanessa Gomez on January 22, 2024 for consulting services. We contacted the Guild. That payment was for hiring an actress named Kenya Washington, a black woman age 54, 5'7", to pose for photographs over a 4-month period. We've spoken to Miss Washington, Detective Mackenzie added. She's cooperating fully. She was told this was for a creative project, an independent film about identity theft. She had no idea she was participating in fraud. Timothy Walsh stood up. Your Honor, these are serious allegations, but they're circumstantial. Even if Miss Gomez did use Mrs. Morris's credit card, which she denies, that doesn't prove. There's more, Rebecca said. She placed a final document on the table. This one was stapled 23 pages long. This is Monica Gomez's employment record. She works as a healthcare coordinator at Toronto Western Hospital. She started there on January 8, 2024, exactly 5 weeks before Mrs. Morris was admitted for surgery. The room seemed to tilt. I'd suspected Monica's involvement, but seeing it confirmed in black and white was staggering. Monica Gomez, Vanessa's sister, was assigned to the orthopedic wing. She had access to patient information. She was assigned to... Rebecca flipped through pages, specifically to patients recovering from hip replacement surgery. She had access to Mrs. Morris's medical records, her personal information, her phone, her wallet. I remembered then. A friendly woman in scrubs, always cheerful, asking about my family, my life, my recovery. She'd brought me extra blankets. She'd helped me send text messages when my hands were too shaky from pain medication. She'd been so kind. She'd stolen everything she needed to destroy me. Justice Morrison removed her glasses. Miss Gomez, I'm ordering you to submit to forensic examination of your phone computer and financial records. Mr. Hayes, the same applies to you. This hearing is continued pending those examinations. Detective Mackenzie, you have jurisdiction to pursue criminal charges if warranted. Already done, Your Honor, Detective Mackenzie said. I have warrants here for both Vanessa Gomez and Monica Gomez for identity theft, fraud, criminal harassment, and conspiracy. Vanessa stood up so fast her chair toppled backward. This is ridiculous. You can't prove any of this. You're all believing the word of a woman who destroyed my father's business, who killed him with stress, who... She stopped, realizing what she'd admitted. Miss Gomez, Justice Morrison said quietly, I suggest you stop talking. But Vanessa couldn't stop. 3 years of hatred, 3 years of planning, 3 years of waiting for revenge. It all came pouring out. My father worked for 40 years. 40 years building that business. And she pointing at me. She just walked away, bankruptcy protection, fresh start, while my father had a heart attack, trying to figure out how to pay his own suppliers, his own employees. He died because of her. Your father died because of a client who went bankrupt owing me $847,000. I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I lost everything too, Vanessa. My business, my house, my marriage, my health. I didn't walk away. I was destroyed just like your father was, but I didn't blame the person who owed me money. I blamed the system that lets companies like Riverside Development operate without accountability. You don't get to talk about my father. Vanessa's voice rose, drawing attention from people passing in the hallway. You black bitch thought you could build a company compete with real businesses. You should have stayed in your place doing whatever it is your people do, not trying to play with real money, real contracts. The racial slur hung in the air like poison. Marcus stood up, his face ashen. Vanessa, what the hell? Shut up, Marcus. You were just a tool. A useful idiot who gave me access to her life, who signed legal papers without reading them, who believed everything I told him because you're too stupid and too ego-driven to question whether a woman half your age would actually want you. She turned back to me and her face was twisted with rage. Monica and I planned this for 2 years. 2 years. We waited for you to be weak, vulnerable, unable to fight back. Monica got the job at the hospital. Do you know how hard that was? 6 months of applications, of interviews, of background checks. But it was worth it. She got access to everything. Your phone passcode. You told her yourself when you were high on morphine after surgery. Your credit card PIN. You had it written in your phone notes like an idiot. Your daily routine, your daughter's schedule, your physical limitations. She was confessing everything, unable to stop herself. Timothy Walsh had his head in his hands. I seduced Marcus at a charity event I bought tickets to specifically because I knew he'd be there. I researched him for 3 months, knew exactly what to say, what to wear, how to make him feel important. He was so easy. Divorced, lonely ego bruised from his failed marriage to you. Men like him always are. Miss Gomez, Detective Mackenzie said, standing, you have the right to remain silent. I strongly suggest I hired Kenya Washington in Vancouver through a contact Monica had. $15,000 for 4 months of work. She thought it was method acting for some indie film. We gave her clothes like yours, hairstyle like yours, glasses like yours. Monica took photos at the hospital to use as reference. Perfect match. 2 more police officers had entered the room, now drawn by the commotion. We spoofed your phone number that cost $400 for the software. We used your credit card for small purchases to create a trail. We set up Marcus to file the lawsuit. Everything was perfect. You'd be found guilty of stalking. You'd lose the little credibility you had left. You'd be broke from legal fees. And maybe, just maybe, you'd end up so desperate you'd do what you should have done 3 years ago and just, that's enough. Justice Morrison's voice cut through like steel. Officers, arrest Miss Gomez. Miss Gomez, you have the right to remain silent, and I strongly advise you to exercise that right immediately. As the officers moved toward her, Vanessa's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her face went even paler. Monica, she whispered. Detective Mackenzie checked her own phone. That's confirmation. Monica Gomez was arrested at Toronto Western Hospital 20 minutes ago. She's being transported to Toronto Police Headquarters. Vanessa crumpled, then all the rage draining out of her, leaving only a hollow desperation. She has a daughter. Monica's daughter. 14 years old. If Monica goes to prison... You should have thought about that, I said quietly, before you involved her in destroying someone else's life. The officers led Vanessa away. She didn't resist. Marcus sat frozen, staring at the table. Timothy Walsh was frantically typing on his phone, probably already composing a motion to withdraw from the case. Justice Morrison looked at me. Mrs. Morris, I'm dismissing the lawsuit with prejudice. Mr. Hayes will be responsible for your legal fees. I'm also recommending that the Crown pursue criminal charges against him for filing a frivolous lawsuit with intent to harass. Marcus finally looked up. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about any of this. You believed it, though, I said. When someone showed you photos and told you I was stalking you, you believed it without question. You didn't call me. You didn't ask for my side. You just assumed the worst, because assuming the worst about me was easier than admitting you felt guilty for leaving me when I needed you most. He had no answer for that. Rebecca and I walked out of the courthouse at 12:47 p.m. The July sun was bright and warm. My hip ached. My back hurt. I was exhausted down to my bones. But I was free. Detective Mackenzie caught up with us on the courthouse steps. Mrs. Morris, I need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. But I wanted you to know we found Kenya Washington. She's in Vancouver, completely cooperative. She had no idea what she was being used for. She thought it was legitimate acting work. Will she face charges? Unlikely. She was a victim too, in a way. Vanessa and Monica are facing serious time, though. Identity theft, fraud, conspiracy, criminal harassment, and now perjury based on what Vanessa admitted in there. We're looking at 6 to 8 years each. And Marcus filing a false police report, filing a frivolous lawsuit. Probably a fine, probation, mandatory community service. His career is over, though. This'll follow him. I nodded. Part of me felt sorry for Marcus, but only a small part. 3 months later, on October 15th, 2024, I stood in front of 38 women at the Toronto Community Centre on Queen Street East. They were all over 50, all black, all small business owners or aspiring entrepreneurs. This was the third workshop I'd given on protecting your identity and your business. The greatest lesson I learned, I told them, is that documentation is power. Every call logged, every email saved, every receipt kept. When someone tried to destroy me, I had evidence. That evidence saved my life. A woman in the front row raised her hand. But you lost everything first. Your business, your money, your health. How did you come back from that? I smiled. I'm still coming back. But I learned that losing things doesn't mean losing yourself. I'm 58 years old. I've been broke, sick, divorced, and falsely accused. And I'm still here, still standing, still building. The truth was more complicated, of course. The lawsuit had been dismissed, but I'd still paid $23,400 in legal fees before Rebecca's motion succeeded. Marcus was ordered to reimburse me, but he'd filed for bankruptcy himself, so I'd likely never see that money. Vanessa and Monica were awaiting trial. Their hearing was scheduled for January 2025. Kenya Washington had sent me a handwritten letter of apology, which I'd accepted. My relationship with Jasmine had deepened. She'd moved into my apartment temporarily to help during my recovery, and we'd spent long evenings talking about things we'd avoided for years. My relationship with Marcus was over in every sense we didn't speak, wouldn't speak. But I'd started consulting again, helping small construction companies with crisis management and business continuity planning. 3 clients so far, charging $150 an hour. It wasn't much, but it was a start. After the workshop, a young woman approached me. She looked about 30, nervous. Ms. Morris, I just wanted to say, my grandmother went through something similar. Identity theft, elder abuse. She didn't have evidence like you did. She lost everything and never recovered. Died 2 years later. Her voice cracked. Thank you for fighting. For showing us that fighting back is possible. I hugged her, this young woman I didn't know, and felt something in my chest loosen. That evening I sat on my small balcony watching the sun set over Toronto. My hip joints ached, they probably always would. My bank account had $8,247.63. My apartment was small, my future uncertain. But I'd learned something valuable in that hospital bed, in that courthouse, in the months of investigation and fear and rage. People see a 58-year-old black woman with a cane and they make assumptions. They assume weakness. They assume defeat. They assume I'll go quietly accept my losses, fade away. Vanessa and Monica had made that assumption. They'd waited until I was at my weakest, calculated that I couldn't fight back, planned my destruction down to the smallest detail. They'd underestimated me. Not because I was strong, I wasn't always strong. Not because I was brave. I was terrified most of the time. But because I understood something they didn't. The truth has weight, real weight. And if you can hold on long enough, if you can document enough, if you can stay standing through the storm, that weight will eventually tip the scales in your direction. My grandmother told me that when I was 16. Took me 42 years to really understand it. I pulled out my phone and texted Jasmine dinner tomorrow. My treat. We need to talk about something. She responded immediately. Everything okay? Everything's good, I typed back. I'm thinking about writing a book. Want to help? 3 dots appeared then. Always mom. Always. I smiled, set down my phone and watched the last of the sunset, paint the sky pink and gold. Tomorrow I'd wake up, do my physical therapy work on my consulting business and keep rebuilding. Today I just sat in the peace of knowing that I'd survived. And sometimes survival is the greatest victory of all.